Could it be that we have finally reached the end of Marvel? No, they're not going to stop making Marvel movies, but rather we could be in the year of the flop. That's right, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Volume 3, is potentially on the way to not making any money. How about that? Who could have seen it coming? But those budgets are bloated indeed. And then, of course, the Marvels, well, that's a disaster in the making, and it does not get much better all the way until Deadpool Holiday 2024. Let's chat about how much money could Marvel lose in the year of the flop. Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do each and every day here on the WDW Pro channel. And we are keeping you ahead of a culture curve that looks like a sinking ship when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only are the streaming properties all going down and being delayed, but also the movies themselves. They're having a hard time making money, partially because those budgets are so large. Now, if you have not watched the precursor to this conversation right now, you definitely need to go check out the Valiant Renegade video, then come back here. But there's a video that was released a little bit earlier this morning that goes through explaining exactly why Guardians of the Galaxy 3 might not be making very much money. Now, I want to go to Valiant to get his thoughts on this. Before we do, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. Mr. Renegade, you broke down in great detail what is going on with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that crazy budget, the crazy marketing, the situation that's unfolding. What say you? Are we in for a year of flops?
When it comes to the MCU, I don't see how it's avoidable at this point. I mean, we know with Ant-Man's terrible performance just a couple of months ago now, I mean, that movie is on pace. We're in the $100 to $150 million loss to Disney range. You know, I mentioned earlier some of the details of how it got to that point. Guardians, it seems the spillover, as you and I previously discussed, it looks like it's actually happening. I really have some questions as to whether or not that Guardians could survive the malaise of phases 4 and 5 of Marvel, and it looks like it's not going to. At least as of this point, we're 3 weeks away, and the early projections right now are miserable. They're lower than Thor: Love and Thunder, and I'm expecting Guardians to come in with a budget that is at least on par with Thor: Love and Thunder, very close to it.
I'm hearing $250 million is the budget. Is that what you're hearing on production?
That's an easy assumption at this point, considering the track record that we've had with Wakanda Forever, Thor: Love and Thunder. I mean, even Ant-Man that stated it too, but we know that didn't include a lot of additional reshoots they did that probably did take it closer to 250. So this is something that Disney cannot seem to get themselves out of, and it may be another couple of years before we see that change because of the way projects are greenlit and how much they have in the pipeline already that has been committed to with whatever given budget they have already.
Well, it doesn't appear that they're eager to make any sort of change. They don't seem to, at least publicly, be making modifications. Privately and in their productions that we see far off on the horizon, it doesn't appear that they're making any sort of altercation to how they pursue the socio-political stuff that they've been putting into content. Mm-hmm. And let me say too, folks, if you have not watched the video from Valiant Renegade that just came up this morning, you're missing half the conversation. Really, make sure that you go watch it. Otherwise, some of the stuff we're going to talk about in this video is not necessarily going to make all that much sense. Stephen, I want to toss it to you, though. I've got a theory here, and my theory is that the marketing for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is completely out of control wrong. That's not a shock because The Little Mermaid is being marketed completely incorrectly. But let me throw this theory to you and see what you think. Mm-hmm. My thought on this is that everything else with Marvel has moved into this new phase. And yes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 exists inside Phase 5, the Phase 5 dive, but it seems to me to be divorced from all the rest of the content. It's its own thing. And simultaneously, it's wrapping up the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. However, you would think that it would be presented in some sort of victorious way, right? Your heroes are going to go out on top. And instead, everything in the marketing is like death and sorrow. And I just don't think that's driving audiences to be really excited. I don't think people are thrilled to go watch Rocket die, to watch Chris Pratt be carried by androgynous Nebula, right, with the giant belt buckle on. I don't think they're too excited about seeing that. And it just feels somber. It feels macabre. Stephen, do you think that the marketing has confused the marketplace?
As I switch to my correct role here in my avatar, I think there's even another bottom line with this. I think it's, in a way, I think if James Gunn is the one in control of this, I think he said it as a send-off that his projects are no longer with Marvel, and he's showing that his own project, as much as it's attached, it's not anymore, and he's out. And it feels like that. It's like he's going out in this weird way. Do you know what I mean? The marketing doesn't
totally,
feel
I'm with
right.
you. It
The
feels like
marketing
he's taking his characters with him. He's just sending them into the next life inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's like he sees Guardians as his life raft for Marvel, and now that life raft has a bunch of holes and it's sinking slowly into the ocean, you're going to see what Disney has to do without Gunn. I'm not praising Gunn as like the savior, but that's the way it feels, because the soundtrack might be good, but it doesn't play off the aesthetics of what we're seeing in the trailers. It feels devoid of happiness, as you say.
Sure, absolutely. And that's a big thing for blockbusters. People tend to want to go see something that's going to be uplifting when the marketing around it makes them feel like, oh my gosh, we're going to get the snap all over again, except maybe this is going to be multiple snapping of necks for our favorite characters. It's hard to convince people to go eat popcorn while that happens. Now, Valiant, we're going to take a look real quick at what once was the Phase 5 dive and Phase 6. I don't have a name for Phase 6 yet as far as titling it. We'll have to get a catchy catchphrase for that. But this is what once was. Yeah, Phase Who Cares. That's a great one. But this is the outline. So we've got Quantumania. That already was a massive flop. We've got Secret Invasion coming to Disney Plus. Samuel L. Jackson leading that one. I don't feel tremendous enthusiasm anywhere for that. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy. We've identified some of the issues there. Loki is a strange one. That, along with Star Wars, The Mandalorian, that was a big one for driving Disney Plus subscribers early. But I don't hear any talk now for Loki Season 2. Isn't that strange? What do you think is going to happen if we just go through, this year? You've got that, then you've got the Marvels. Is Blade still on track for the end of this year? I don't think so, right?
No.
Yeah, so that's out.
That November slot, I believe, is now occupied by, well, not that particular slot, but the November MCU slot is now occupied by the Marvels. Now, that's going to be around the Thanksgiving frame, but they had to push Blade back. There was some problems with that. That chart is obviously a little bit dated, but again, it's a great example of how bad things are at Marvel. They keep having to, reshuffle the deck chairs on the Titanic at this point.
Well, and that's why we're pulling it up is to show everybody just how much has been jettisoned or backed up now. But what do you think is going to happen with the Marvels, for example? How bad could this be?
Oh, I think the Marvels, as I joked at the end of the video I did this morning, I said, Disney could very easily be looking back around mid-December of this year after the Marvels have been out for a couple of weeks and say, good Lord, Ant-Man 3 was pretty good.
That's right. We were having a good time back in February.
Remember those good old days when we only lost $100 million? Good Lord.
Ooh.
Yeah, if you cannot get people excited about Guardians...
Make sure to catch the Pro Show Thursdays, 5 to 7 Eastern Time. Entertainment Explained, The Culture Curve Conquered, live with Pro and all his friends.
Now, they've been really trying hard lately to, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but to push Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just don't see how you can pull a huge audience. I know that in the past, there was a series that had some excitement around it, but I don't sense that people are tremendously excited for that. I'm trying to find something somewhere. And the amazing thing to me about this is they have properties that would excite people.
Yeah.
But for whatever crazy reason, maybe it's just absolute narcissism, ego, hubris, however you want to label it, out of Kevin Feige and perhaps Victoria Alonso before she was shown the door. they decided not to go with the properties that would sell stuff. So we've got Echo, Ironheart, Thunderbolts, Captain America, but it's not really Captain America. Steven, what is going on here? What are these? These aren't even the B-side. This is like Z-tier.
Before I take one of my $90 migraine medications and try to explain this, I'm not kidding. Daredevil is already going to be shunned due to the fact of She-Hulk and the representation there. So already there, you've already faltered it by the how much the reception was for She-Hulk and the Daredevil in there. You're going to have fans that are going to be fearful that you're going to get the same type of Daredevil in there, walking home barefoot, and the walk of shame devil. Echo, I haven't heard any buzz on that, other than probably being pushed back.
I don't even know what that is.
Echo is the chick from Hawkeye that wasn't about Hawkeye, but that was deaf, that was trained by Kingpin. I hope I'm getting this right. Then there was Agatha, which came back from WandaVision, which started the whole flop. That's now call 5.
That's been pushed back.
And no offense, we're going to see the same argument when New Order comes out. Captain
You know what else
America
that means, though, Steven?
Rogers.
If they're pushing those back, that means that it didn't matter where they landed in terms of our own real life timeline. They cannot be connected to these films in a way that matters. They're sort of evergreen floating content. And that makes them less exciting because, for some of this weird avant-garde stuff that Kevin Feige has tried, people tuned in simply because they thought, oh, well, there's going to be, that's going to lead into the movie that I really want to see with the actual character that I care about. Now we're getting this stuff where clearly by them moving it back, it just doesn't matter. So who's going to watch Agatha? Who's going to be like, oh yeah, well we're not going to learn anything about the X-Men or Fantastic Four. We're not going to learn anything about the multiverse. But there's Agatha. I want to watch that just for Agatha. No, nobody cares about that.
There's another underlying factor with this too. It could be the fact that they're actually watching these YouTubers and they're realizing, is oversaturation a real thing? And they're getting paranoid, and that could be also a possibility of pushback.
Well, let me tell Marvel, if you're watching this video right now, and we know some of you do, there is not oversaturation. There is just way too much crap, and you need to go back to creating actual content people care about. So you've got all the Avengers. Go back to them. I don't care what it takes.
There is a saving
You don't care
grace.
what it takes. They make money.
There is a saving grace with this, though. All they have to do is team up with Charmin, and just when they release one of these properties, you get a free roll of toilet paper to wipe it with.
All right, VR. We've got another issue for Marvel talking about all of these flops that are potentially coming. This one, though, I don't even know how to qualify this. It's not a flop, and yet financially it has to be this huge burden on them already. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the Dynasty of Kang. We're talking about all of these interactions with Kang across these movies.
Yep.
What the heck is Marvel going to do? We're finding out that this Jonathan Majors situation, which we can't even describe because YouTube will get us, but the situation with Jonathan Majors, the big star behind the villain role for all of these Phase 5 and Phase 6 movies, well, this may not be wrapped up in time for them to be maintaining the production schedule. So do they toss even the stuff that's still on the roadmap? Do they toss that out and say, never mind, we're going to go with, Clobbering Times. And the other day, he was telling us that Dr. Doom and Mr. Sinister might be, the characters to bring in and replace Kang. But my gosh, you've got movies named after the villain. It's a huge mess.
Yeah, I don't think the character is necessarily going anywhere. And fortunately for Marvel, the character of Kang in this case, because Disney can just do it the cheap and easy way, and that is to say, now he looks different because he's everywhere. It's a multiverse character, right? He doesn't necessarily have to look the same in every universe. So they can just easily recast this guy and continue on with the character if they really want to.
Will Smith is jumping up and down. He's like, finally, I can get a role again. I can be a bad guy. It's the only thing they'll ever give me anymore. I can be a bad guy.
That's not true. He has retribution. He just needs to go to the Oscars, hit Chris Rock, and everything will work fine.
Well, I was going to say, it would have been perfect if they had actually cast Chris Rock as the new Captain America. Then it would have been fantastic.
True that. But instead, that's not what we're going to get. And you and I have talked about, we've talked with sources inside the industry, specifically inside merchandising, who have told us that partners of Disney are now desperate. They're desperate for Disney to go back to the characters that people love because this mantle strategy that was promulgated by Victoria Alonso simply doesn't work. People actually care about the original characters. It's not just a package of superhero abilities that you can toss to a new actor and a new character, and who cares about their origin story? You don't need one, right? That's the Mantle strategy, but it's a complete failure. It doesn't work at all.
It doesn't. I mean, and that's the problem, is that the people running these companies making these creative decisions are more politically motivated than they are creatively motivated and commercially motivated, quite frankly. They have been steeped in this idea that they can just take something that people already know, Star Wars, Marvel, Star Trek, whatever the case is, and then just, well, as long as it's got that name on it, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, as long as it's got that name on it,
too big to fail.
Yeah, everybody will watch it. It doesn't matter what we do. We can change the characters up to get more diversity and more representation going, and it's like, or we can add in all this type of socio-political messaging and all this kind of stuff, and it's wonderful and great, and nobody will care or notice. And it's like, no, like we always talk about, throw out all the socio-politics for a moment and just understand a simple concept, is that if you have a very popular, well-known intellectual property, the best thing you can do if you're going to go forward with it or create a new piece from it is to make it look as much like the most familiar version as possible to appeal to the widest audiences. That's called commercial viability. They don't want to do that. They want to make it, they want to take away the easy layup shot of commercial viability and try to change things, and it just keeps failing for them, and they're getting frustrated with it, but they're just going to keep writing the checks and spending the money, and that's fine. It just doesn't work. And movies like Mario Brothers coming out right now that show you this is how you treat an IP, this is how you get all the fans losing their minds and spending tons of money. Disney is so far removed from that basic degree of common sense at this point, it's absolutely baffling to me.
So let's follow up on what you just said, Stephen. The Mario Brothers movie now exists, and because of that, there is no cover for anybody. It's impossible to make up any sort of excuse, because the Super Mario Brothers movie is doing something that, frankly, has never been done before. It came out and it broke records with the biggest animated feature-length film box office launch ever. And then it followed that up with something absolutely remarkable. They had to adjust even yesterday the numbers because the Super Mario Brothers movie held on, I believe it's 37% drop. Is that right, Valiant? 36% drop, somewhere around there?
It's in the mid-30s, and I even tweeted a little while ago, if many of y'all may have seen this one. The Super Mario Brothers movie made almost as much in its second weekend as the entire run of Lightyear.
What's Lightyear?
That's how bad it is.
So, Stephen, you add in Japan, South Korea, like we talked about in the article yesterday.
Oh, my God.
That's 300 million minimum, okay?
Yeah.
That gets it to the billion mark already. It only needs 400 million more. If it can get 400 million in its full lifetime after this, then I think it's going to beat Frozen 2 and be the biggest feature-length animated film ever. Mm-hmm. Now, you've got that, and at the same time, you've got the Marvel situation where they can't make money. So, Stephen, what the heck's going on here? When is Disney going to get the message?
I don't think they can get the message because they have their own they're trying to push, and it's called I Don't Like Money. The second thing is Mario's going to open up in its hometown, Golden Week as well, right?
Yeah, Golden Week in Korea and Japan.
So in other words, you're going to see a whole new lantern festival of people just going to the theater and having fun. Mm-hmm. Marvel can't recover from this because they're on a road that is not entertainment, it's ideology. And we've learned one thing over the last 5 years when it comes to any property that is wagging the finger at the audience is the audience will walk away. Mario doesn't do that. And more entertainment needs to start shifting towards that. You can relate that to the same thing with the Harry Potter game. It was nothing but entertainment and people getting to live out their dream as a wizard in the house they chose.
Mm-hmm.
Disney
That's right. And you get to pick
that.
between the critics and the social media screechers or the market. Which one do you want to have? And Disney appears to have gone for the critics and the screechers and the shriekers, and they're not in it for the market. At least they're not producing content that the market is responding to in the way that they need. All right, let's go back now to the roadmap. We know it's been altered. We know they've pushed it back. But here's what we need to do. I'm going to go through each one of these, and you guys tell me whether it's going to be a success or a flop. Okay?
Do we want to delineate between theatrical release and Disney Plus?
Oh yeah, we're not gonna use Disney Plus as the flop meter. The flop-o-meter will not be applied to Disney Plus. All right, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Steven, what say you?
It'll be mid-tier.
Valiant?
I'm gonna say it's probably gonna barely break even.
That's what I say, break even. All right, The Marvels. Steven?
Like Brie Larson's career, bare minimum.
I'm going to say The Marvels is going to look similar to Ant-Man, considering its massive reshoots again, just like Ant-Man. And we're probably looking at a $100 million loss.
Floptastic, that's what I say. All right, Blade, if we get it at all. Steven, what's Blade going to do?
I don't know. That's up in the air. I can't say anything because it's Blade.
Well, yeah. What's funny about that, though, is the default used to be, it'll do fine. It's a Marvel movie. Now it's like, well, I don't know about that. What is it again? Help me out with this.
It'll go the way of Hawkeye, the series on Disney Plus.
All right. Valiant?
I mean, look, again, Blade is one of those perfectly situated films for Marvel to not break the bank upon. I mean, that is a movie that they should not spend more than, say, $125 million to make. Sony and other studios do this all the time with these kind of films. There's no reason for Marvel to spend $200 million on a movie like that. Go back and look at the budget for the first Blade movie they did way back when, compare it to a lot of other big blockbuster quote-unquote things. They did not spend a lot of money, but Marvel is stupid, and Disney lets them be stupid, so it will probably flop because of the ridiculous budget they will dump into it.
Okay, and I'm indefinite on that one. We need to see some more on it. I don't have a good answer on it, so I'm gonna cheat like Steven on that one. All right, Captain America: New World Order. Let's start with Valiant this time.
Good luck.
We'll take that as a flop, Steven.
Who?
Captain America: New World Order. What do you got?
No, Steve Rogers retired. Who is this?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Exactly. Yeah. Well played. All right, so flop by default. All right, so I don't want to get into the others. Either they're so sad that they don't need to be discussed, or they're so far out that it's just difficult to figure out. So like the Fantastic Four, who knows? But suffice to say that we're at a point where I think both of you would probably agree with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you might both agree that there is seriously a situation, there's seriously a scenario where we could go all the way from this point right now until the end of 2024 when Deadpool, which by the way is not even on this list, they added it later, but where Deadpool 3 could be the first Marvel movie in 2 years to make a profit. Now, I think that's less likely than a few of these breaking even, but it's a realistic scenario. So I'm going to give you guys final thoughts. I'll hand it to Valiant first, and Steven, you get the final word on this. But how long does it take, even if they attempt to begin correcting this? Are we going to have to wait until Phase 7 to get the course correction, if that even happens at all? Valiant, what do you think?
Oh, they've got to do it before then. You're not going to make it into 25 and 26 with these big Avengers Kang Dynasty and Avengers Secret Wars things and be able to survive, because once they get to those films, you look back at the original Avengers movies themselves, and then, of course, with Endgame and Infinity War, I mean, each of those last two movies in the Infinity Saga, Disney spent between $300 and $400 million that we know of on each of them. You're talking about major expenditures when they get to these big climactic movies. I can't see them. Either Disney has to do one of two things. They've either got to get the budgets under control, sharply under control with these things, and we're talking minimum 50 to 75, if not $100 million per picture.
Wait a minute. Let's clarify that. You're talking about a reduction, or are you saying that they have to get it down to?
No, they need to reduce. I mean, right now they're spending $250 a picture. They need
to get down to $150.
They need to get down to $150 to $175 per picture.
Okay.
Especially if we're talking about, like an individual character story, like a Blade or something like that, or an Ant-Man, which should have been. But they're not, because they're so discombobulated and so completely unorganized. Maybe Victoria Alonso being dismissed will help that. Maybe it won't. Time will tell. But the other thing is they've actually got to start writing good stories. I mean, they
How
can't.
about that?
You know, that's the problem right now. Nobody cares about these movies because, in general, they kind of suck now. I mean, they really suck now. I mean,
You would think that would be step one in every single plan they have, but so far that has eluded them that they have to write a good story.
Yeah.
Steven,
I thought
can
step
they
one-
possibly get people to come to an Avengers movie when they don't care about the Avengers that have been assembled?
Well, I think they have to go back to step one and pick up a comic book and actually open it.
Not modern comic book, Steven. Not modern
No.
comic books.
No. We're not talking about like Nightcrawler, Spider-Man, and the Walmart Wonder Woman stuff like we've seen over the years. They need to get back on track, but this doesn't interest anyone. It's like they're doing this in such a fashion where they want the old fans to just give up so they can only pander to the new fans they're actually going for. But that audience is not large enough to make back the money they're investing in. And I agree with both of you when it comes to the 150 million drop-off. They need to do
That's
it.
exactly right,
You
Steven.
can't make the money off a 3% audience that hasn't picked up the same comic book you haven't picked up. They have lost the formula, and they're hiding it on pushbacks, thinking if we do enough reshoots, maybe we'll fix our error. I'm sorry, if you start with dog crap, you can't reshoot dog crap and make it look like a cheesecake. It doesn't work that way, because in the middle, it's still crap because you have no effort in between.
Folks, we're going to use that metaphor from now on. You can't take dog crap and turn it into a cheesecake.
TM Fat Steven.
That is a fat Stevenism if there ever was one. All right, and my final suggestion to Marvel is simply, we're not saying that you have to go back to the original characters who are all of the demographic that you seem to despise. If you want to have all kinds of characters from all kinds of different backgrounds, that's great. But quit trying this mantle strategy where you transfer the persona of these original characters to somebody of a different ethnic background or different gender, and then assume that's enough, and the story doesn't matter, and we don't have to make the character interesting. No. If you're going to do that, which you should have lots of different people that reflect all different parts of society. Those characters need to be original. They need to be exciting. And you have plenty of those types of characters in your roster of comic stories. Lean into them. And for the love of all things good and for the love of your future bank accounts over there at Disney, get back to telling good stories and bring us the characters we want. Get those X-Men in as fast as you possibly can, because we all know you have nothing else at this point. All right, if you have not yet watched the Valiant Renegade video, go over there and check it out. He's going to break down exactly what's going on with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, why it is going to struggle to make money, despite the fact that it's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Who could have ever seen that just a few years ago? Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. We cover your comments. Drop one down below. We read them. We respond. And memberships are now open. Consider clicking that join button. For the cost of a soda, you can hop in and get all kinds of exclusive content. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.